Chicago, you don't have people coming to South Korea. I live in LA, so we have friends coming all the time. So. What? People from Arizona come here in the summertime, really? Not exactly pleasant here either, but we didn't come to debate media. You don't have the summer? This is beautiful today. I don't know how you arranged this, but it was lovely. Even the pilot coming in, I live in LA, so I flew in this morning, and the pilot said, "It's really nice out there," you know, yes, he really was surprised. It was really, so get out of the plane and let us out of the plane. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see you. I haven't been here in a year, so I came to see my grand student here. You see, so this is a wonderful thrill to see this little fellow. Congratulations. The community has been fruitful. That's a nice thing. You all are now responsible for his college education. So, yeah, one way or another. Very good. Shabbat Shalom. So later, if you're able to stay and if you're able to come back tomorrow, we're going to take some time to study the prayer book. This came about in a very odd way, which I'll talk about later, but I had a friend of mine visit my synagogue. I'm a synagogue rabbi in LA, which means if you close your eyes and fall asleep, I'll feel at home. You too, little guy. We had a friend of mine who is a Baptist minister, a very fundamentalist, but a very, and a very kind, good man. Came with members of his community to pray with us. And he comes to me afterwards and he says, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I said, "Of course, anything at all." He says, "You Jews, you have a very intimate relationship with God." I said, "Yeah, I guess we do. I guess we do." He said, "Then why do you need 700 pages of a prayer book?" Now, when you think about that, and it takes somebody from outside the circle of your culture to point out something that, because you grew up with it. So, like, I grew up with prayer books. You grew up with prayer books. We've all grown up, and we've always had prayer books, right? And this guy, he said, "We don't pray with a prayer book. We pray from the heart." Why can't you Jews pray from the heart? It's like cooking. I don't know if anybody here cooks. There are people who cook from recipes, and there are people who cook from the heart. What? Intention? Intention meaning intention or intention? Because they're both true. Either way you go, you've won this one. Yeah. 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 Remember in the Music Man, you don't have to know how to play the instrument, just play from the, it's the thought. What was it called? The thought method. What was it called? The think method. Think the minuet in G, right? So it's like, what do you do with a 700-page prayer book? That's going to be the question I'd like to ask tonight, and we'll spend some more time on that tomorrow. One of the things that you do, there's a child in the room, so closes your. If you understand prayer as an act of intimacy, sorry, then a 700-page prayer book is like all those books at Barnes & Noble on how to make love, which to me seems sort of ironic. Like, what do? You take the book to bed and you say, no, not that way. It's a little bit like, it's a very strange thing. Like, if you need the book, like you're not, anyway. So I thought that was vivid, but never mind. So the question is, so one of the purposes of the book is to provide a vocabulary. There used to be a radio program in Los Angeles called Religion on the Line, and the moderator was Dennis Prager, who's a famous right-wing fellow. And he would always have a rabbi, a priest, and a minister. And I used to listen to this because it was on Sunday night at 10 o'clock, and I was always driving home from somewhere. And there would always be the same question somewhere during the course of the program. Somebody would call in and ask the question, if I don't belong to an organized religion, does that mean I can't have a relationship with God? Can one have a relationship with God without belonging to an organized faith? And of course, the priest would say, no, you need the church. The church is the structure in which one meets God. And the Protestant minister would always say, of course you can have a relationship with God without the church. That's Protestantism. And the Jew would say, like, next question, and he's right. Because it's interesting, but I think the answer goes like this. You can have a relationship with God without a church, without a synagogue, without organized religion, until you have the impulse to tell somebody about it. Because the moment I want to relate to you what was the most profoundly changing experience of my existence, I run into the problem that the language I would use to share the experience is a subjective language that you won't understand. That one of the first things that a faith community is a shared language for sharing moments of life, for sharing moments of insight, for sharing moments of joy and sadness. It's a shared language. Those of us who grew up in the Jewish community, so many of these words have become part of us that we don't understand that these words are sort of precious because they point to human reality. So if I say to you, "Oi, you did a mitzvah." Now, first of all, you have to start the sentence with "oi." You know, it doesn't work if you just go, "Oh, a mitzvah." It doesn't work that. "Oi, you did a mitzvah," right? Okay? Or the opposite kind of thing. You say, "Oi, you know, that's taka and avera," which is the opposite of "Oi, that was a mitzvah." Or if I say, "I have a simcha to celebrate," it's a language for describing a certain kind of experience. Or I take nachas in my kids. Translation: I gain a sense of existential significance and satisfaction. Isn't nachas sound better, you know? So we have a religious, one of the things that the prayer book does is the prayer book provides a vocabulary for a certain class of experiences which would otherwise be difficult to name. So we're about to use one. I'll explain to you what I have in mind. There's a word in the Hebrew vocabulary, in the Jewish vocabulary, which is revered. It's the word Kadosh, Kedusha. Now it's translated in your prayer book as holy, which if you think for just a moment is not very useful. Because if you translate holy, you would say sacred. Then I would say translate sacred, and you would say holy, and we're back where we started all over again. And you would say, all right, so holy means something that's very special, something revered, something valued, something respected. Okay, fine. It's deeper than that. It comes from a chapter in the book of Leviticus, which we just read a week ago. In the book of Leviticus, in the middle of the book of Leviticus, which is otherwise a rather dry book, you have this line which says, Kadoshim tihiyu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. You will be kadosh because I, God, am kadosh. Now that's already an interesting statement. That means there is a quality of divinity that you can have. Most qualities of divinity you can't. God is infinite, and God is eternal, and God is all-knowing, and you'll never be any of that stuff. You're human. In that way, divinity and humanity are opposite each other. But in this one thing, Kadoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai, you will be kadosh because I, God, am kadosh. You will strive to emulate it. You will gain this quality. So now we understand that this king of kadosh means something that you share with God. Now what is it? How do you translate it? Well, there was a great philosopher at the beginning of the 20th century by the name of Ludwig Wittgenstein, who rejected all of previous philosophers. A lot of philosophers do this. They reject everything before. And he had a very simple thing. He said, look the way the word is used. So look at the way the word kadosh is used. Okay? Let's take 4 examples. Number 1. On a holiday or on a Sabbath, you gather with your family and your friends around a table, usually with a lot of food in it. And before you partake of that wonderful feast, you stand up together, lift a glass of wine, and you say something. And the name of that prayer is Kiddush. Now, Kiddush, from the same word, Kadosh. Now, you're not sanctifying the wine. The wine is Manischewitz. Can't be sanctified. Not only is it not sanctified, it's not even any good. Yeah. Okay? Any wine that has a vintage in AM or PM, you know it's not good. You know, be careful. Okay? What are you sanctifying? What is it that you are recognizing? What are you pointing to in that moment? It's not the wine. It's the circle of people sitting around the table who have gathered to share a meal together. That's one example. Here's a second example. 2 loving partners decide to share their lives together in responsibility and care and trust. A ring is put on the other person's finger, and the line is, Harei at mikudeshet li. And in more egalitarian services, Harei ata mikudash li. What? Yes. Well, we didn't have rings, so, and it's Shabbos, so you can. Harei mikudeshet li, you are kadosh to me. And the word for that kind of union in Hebrew is called kiddushin. Kiddushin, when two people share a life together, held together. Third example, and we'll do this one in a moment as well. Someone we love has died, but we don't let go. In fact, we ferociously hold on to each other. And we say that the death of the body is not a separation from that person in my soul. And we stand up in the midst of community, and you can only do this in community, and you say the prayer that's called Kaddish. Kiddush, Kiddushin, Kaddish. You see the pattern? What's the pattern? It's all about what? It's all holiness, but what is it? It's all sharing. It's all about bonding. It's about holding people together. It's about recognizing that my existence doesn't end at the tip of my nose, but that I am in fact, or at least the better parts of me and the better parts of my existence are those which are shared with the circle of people around me. Kiddush, Kaddish, Kiddushin are bonding rituals. They're holding together. They're making the self bigger. What I'm doing is saying that self doesn't end here. Self is a circle that surrounds me. And the more people that I invite into my circle of self, the holier my existence is, the more meaningful my existence is. Now, incidentally, this is completely contrary to a common conventional American idea. Remember, this country was founded and its first flag was a snake that said, "Don't tread on me." Americans have this idea of individualism. I am me, and get out of my way. And I can do whatever I want, I won't hurt you. The notion of the self-possessed self, the self-absorbed, the bounded self, and that any intrusion into self is a diminishment of my selfhood, a diminishment of my freedom, and a diminishment of my humanity. Remember the joke about the salmon and the chicken that went for a walk? And they saw a billboard that said, "Charity breakfast, lox and eggs, today only." And the salmon and the chicken says to the salmon, "Come, we'll go, I'll have a good time." And the salmon says, "I'm not so sure." And the chicken says, come on, it's for charity, for God's sake. Come on, we'll go, I'll have a good time." And the salmon says, "I'm not so sure." And the chicken says, come on, what's holding you back?" And the salmon says, "Look, lox and eggs breakfast. From you, they want a contribution. From me, they want commitment." Right? That's an American idea. You don't want to give too much until it's too late. You don't believe me, by the way? There used to be these things in newspapers called personal ads. Remember personal ads? Right? Personal ads are really funny because you can't tell the difference between personal ads and sales ads. Right? Because what's happening is, as long as I maintain the guise of the consumer, I control the transaction, and you can't impinge yourself upon me. So when I'm looking for a partner, I'm looking for someone to play with, I'm looking for someone to date, I want somebody with what? I want a low mileage, low maintenance, nice headlights, good sized trunk, easy to service, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Now it's on J-Date. Anyone go on, ever look, you know what J-Date is? It's this like gigantic supermarket, And do they really? Yeah, give out. What? E pluribus unum. Yeah, that's an interesting, but that's not a, see that's from the, first of all, they made that up because the colonies wouldn't come together. That was the Federalist bumper sticker. On their donkeys, but the Federalist number, because they couldn't get the colonies to come together because the South Carolinians and the Virginians wouldn't sit down with the guys from Massachusetts. That's exactly why they came up with that thing. It took the three smartest men who ever lived in this country, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe, to get them to come together. The three schnooks died, and we'd be in trouble ever since, right? Now, here's my suggestion, that what happens in Jewish life is the opposite. That the notion of Jewish life is that every one of us walks the world with a sort of circle of concern, a circle of care, a circle of self. And that the bigger your circle of self, the more human you become. God is the circle that includes everybody. It's the all. So that Kedoshim Tiyu Ki Kadosh Ani Adonai means that the more your circle expands to include everyone, to include the world, the more godly you become. Kadosh is Kiddush, Kadosh is Kiddushin, Kadosh is Kaddish. And I'll give you the opposite one. Here's the fourth example. At the end of Shabbos, we're going to make Havdalah. We do this at bar mitzvah parties. So if you've been to a lot of bar mitzvahs, you've seen a lot of Havdalah, right? You do Borei Priya Gafen, you do a prayer on spices, you do a prayer on candle, and then the fourth bracha is the one on Havdalah. And you say, Baruch Hamavdil Ben Kodesh Le Chol. In Hebrew, the opposite of Kodesh is Chol, translated in your prayer book as the profane, the ordinary. But Chol, which is the opposite of Kodesh, literally, what is Chol? In Hebrew, what is Chol literally? Somebody said it. Sand. Chol is sand. Now, think about that image for a moment. Go to the shore, go to the beach, pick up a handful of sand. What happens? Why? Because nothing's connected to anything else. The opposite of Kodesh is Chol. The opposite of bonding is the atomization. The atomization of human beings so that there's nothing that holds them together as one. And so God comes into the world as the principle of bonding. And inasmuch as all of us have the capacity to transcend the boundaries of the narrow self and include the other, the ones we love, the ones we care for, the ones for whom we accept responsibility, the ones with whom we share life, we share this quality of God, the quality of bonding. So now we're going to finish the service with 2-3 statements of this process. We're going to say Kaddish, we're going to say Kaddish, and we're going to say Kiddush. We're going to hold each other as community because we've come to understand that it's in the bonds that hold us together that God dwells. Shabbat Shalom. And it's called Shabbos Kodesh because it's the day that you bond with the ones that you love. So after I finish the lecture tonight, go home and bond, right? See, in L.A., that would have gotten a lot of laughter, but everyone here going, yeah, I think we should do that. Did he just say...